Welcome to this edition of NCSO 360, the Nassau County Sheriff's Office podcast. I'm Robert Grant, the Public Information Officer for NCSO, and today we're going to be talking about a pretty big investigation, an operation that happened a few months ago, but really has been continuing on for several months. So we want to bring in Detective Josh Carter with our Criminal Investigations Division. Josh, Operation Stuffed Animals. This operation was really focused on targeting child sexual predators. Tell me a little bit about this operation and how we got here today.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm proud to be here to represent the Sheriff's Office and our agency, Criminal Investigations Division. These operations are huge. It's multifaceted, multi-agency. We're talking about federal resources, state and local. Our country has a problem with child exploitation and people that are interested to have sexual activity with children. So it's a huge problem, and I'm glad that our agency takes a lead in Northeast Florida on these operations to arrest individuals who try to seek sexual activity with children.
Let's go through some of the numbers. This was a 3-day operation. We had now 8 different arrests as a result of that 3-day operation. This is the second operation that you've been the lead on just this year for a total of 31 arrests. What does that number say to you? 31 in just 1 year and 2 operations.
Sure. 31 is a tremendous number. I think that the Nassau County Sheriff's Office is leading the way in these operations and arresting these individuals. The number tells me that there is a problem in our society. Again, it's not just a Nassau County problem, it's a nationwide problem. We're all the way up into the Senate, about various applications and stuff. And the federal government is trying to do their portion, but really it falls on to local agencies, the sheriff's offices, and for us here locally, we're doing a great job.
I want to talk about some of those applications in just a bit, but before we go to that, I want to explain a little bit about how these operations work. Of course, we can't go into too much detail because some of that needs to be kept under wraps so that we can continue to do these operations and these investigations, but it starts with undercover detectives essentially chatting with these potential suspects. And then we have our detectives and investigators intercept these suspects when they go to meet or travel to meet who they think are children for sex. Can you kind of expand a little bit upon that and the start to finish of how these operations work?
Sure. Without going in great detail, we begin on a location that we decide to apprehend these suspects. Utilizing that spot, we have undercover investigators online in various applications, not one specifically. Some of them that are more common to, that children frequent those, and the investigators will communicate with individuals, telling them their age, but they continue to have that conversation anyways, which is a problem,
And thankfully, these are undercover detectives and not real children.
Absolutely.
Because there are cases where it is, unfortunately, real children. You've investigated some of those cases over the past several years.
It's despicable to me, the fact that, you have an individual, hey, I'm 12, 11, 13, however old, and you have a grown adult on the other end that continues to have terrible conversations with children, and it's unprecedented. I can't believe that people do that.
It's hard reading some of the arrest reports and the warrants. You see those text messages. You see the undercover detective say, "Oh, I'm 14 years old. I'm 15 years old." Some of these suspects don't even flinch. They continue to text, and now we can't go into some of the text that they're saying because a lot of that is evidence in court for these suspects that were arrested. But can you kind of explain, Josh, for some of the viewers and listeners, what are these texts and these messages like?
Right. They are vulgar in nature. And it's funny that you said that. You're talking about how, you give out this age of whatever the investigator is presenting themselves to be. But oftentimes it's almost as though that intrigues them even more to engage in these conversations, which is despicable. But, the conversation goes from age quickly into sex. And, if you believe that you're on, an application or some kind of forum with somebody who's a 12-year-old, and you begin to talk about, various sexual activity, and you have children at home that are the same age, that's a problem. That's a problem not just, that's a problem with that person. Like, you have a child at the house that's the same age. That's a problem. It's terrible. And so it makes me happy to do these investigations and to make these arrests, as well as the other investigators, because this is not just me. These investigators put in months and months of effort. The arrest begins the whole process. The investigation continues afterwards, and it's a ton of work.
It's really interesting to see behind the scenes the number of agencies involved,
Oh, yes.
the amount of coordination that goes into it, from the planning process right up to the arrest, and then even after, as you mentioned, the investigation. Go through just some of the agencies that are involved in these operations. It's not just the Nassau County Sheriff's Office.
Sure, and I hope I don't miss anybody, because we utilize so many local partners. But we always invite our FBI friends, Homeland Security Investigations. We have St. Johns County that shows up all the time. They're very helpful. Clay County, JSO, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. In this most recent one, Operation Stuffed Animals, we had the Baker County Sheriff's Office, Lake City Police Department. They've been to our last several ones. Great partnership there. We even have like tactical medical people who assist from fire department, Nassau County Fire Rescue, that we're helping on our takedown teams in case anybody got injured, whether it be a suspect or a police officer, And so, I hope I'm not missing anybody, but
I think you got them all.
I think
Customs
so.
and Border Protection.
Yes, great partner. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I cannot leave them out. Air assets, providing that evidence cover if we need it, and if anybody was to flee, it keeps the public safer, because we don't have to really tail them as closely as we normally would in a pursuit. So a huge asset to us, and never a flinch in helping us.
For you personally, when you see some of these arrests being made, what goes through your head?
It's funny. It depends, because some of them, I'm still a human. You still feel bad for people, but I also feel bad for that little girl or boy that this person was going to come and, essentially destroy their life, And oftentimes you look at the chat and you're like, how dare you, And I feel proud and happy in the fact that this individual has been arrested and taken off the streets. And, we all work together in the judicial system with the state attorney's office and all that, and they're doing their part. And then, the judge is doing their part, and you can't make everybody happy in these things. But I think that collaboratively we do a great job at getting these people put in jail for as long as they need to go.
I'm glad you mentioned the word collaboration. The sheriff mentioned this, and it's so true. Criminals don't recognize county borders, state lines, city lines. And I think when it comes to that collaboration and working with other agencies, we don't recognize it either. We stand united as one, working with all of these agencies to put these suspects behind bars before they do victimize an actual child.
Yes.
Thankfully, it doesn't get to that point with some of these suspects, but unfortunately, in some cases, it does.
Sure.
And Josh, what's your message to parents? Obviously, you see some of this. It's frightening. It's scary. What can they do? What do they need to be aware of to make sure this doesn't happen to their child?
Yeah, I'm glad you put that out there, because I've traveled all over the country when I was a task force officer with the federal agency, and I've seen a lot of very nasty stuff that happen to children, and very, very young children. And I think oftentimes it goes back to, you have to be the parent, and you have to know what your kids are doing online. And it's no fault of the parent. I mean, it's easy to miss, because we live in a digital world, and I think sometimes just parents don't realize that they should be checking. It's unfortunate, because a lot of people have trust, and trust in the things that are going on, but you can't trust your children. Not that you can't trust your children, you can't trust who your children are talking to. Mm-hmm. And so you can invest in various applications, that are becoming more prevalent now, to monitor the phone or device for you, mm-hmm. By, various keywords that they may hear or see being texted or typed, and those are always a great asset to parents, I think.
Mm. You mentioned some of the applications parents can use to protect their kids.
Sure.
What are some of the applications out there that kids are using that sometimes become these breeding grounds for some of these predators that parents maybe need to watch out for?
Yeah, I mean, any of them. But you think about it. Roblox has been in the news lately. Here it's
Yes.
huge. I know that they had some stuff going to the Senate with that, with them as well. Some lawsuit mitigation stuff. But any of them. Think about it. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. Why would you ever give an 8-year-old an account that deletes automatically images of
Yeah.
videos that have been sent? That's where the parenting part comes in. You have to tell your kid, we're not going to have Snapchat on your phone. I'm sorry. I know your friends do, but I'm not your friend's, parent. I'm your parent. I love you. I want you to be safe. And you may not like it now, but when you're 22, 23 years old, you're not dealing with what could have happened to you. I think it's important.
Parents need to parent first. You can be
Yes.
friends
Later.
later with
That's
your
right.
kids. It, across these two operations, so we had Operations Deviant Nightfall and Sunrise earlier this year, and then we
Right.
had Stuffed Animals just a couple of months ago. Is there one arrest of the 31 total? And you still have one outstanding warrant, too, from this most recent one.
I
right?
do.
Yeah.
So, and that's my message. My message to anybody who's had a conversation with a child. You may have a warrant out for your arrest, and we're coming for you. So I want them to know that.
That is
But, yeah.
very important to put out there. Is there one arrest that sticks out in your mind? Maybe one that really just bothered you for whatever reason?
Yeah. Yeah, the one that really bothered me was the one in Deviant Nightfall where the individual actually showed up with his child
Slowly exit the vehicle. Hey, my son is in here. Slowly exit.
to have sex with the underage person and allegedly, drugged his son to be asleep, gave medication to be sleepy while he engaged in sex in a car in a parking lot with a underage girl. To me, why would you introduce your child to that's a problem too, And that's not the only time that that's happened, It's just we happen to get this one on this operation.
That to me, and I was there for that too, and
Yeah.
and to see, and I saw that switch in you too, Josh, when
Yeah.
when that happened, when that suspect showed up with a kid, 4 years old.
Yeah.
You could see the frustration and the anger that came from you, and really the whole room just changed, because that's hard to wrap your head around. Why somebody would do that?
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Going to have sex in a car with somebody who's similar in age to your own child who you brought with you.
Make that make sense.
You can't.
You can't.
You can't make it up. Mm-hmm. And when you say deviants, the sexual deviant, that's what they are. They're deviants.
Operation Deviant Nightfall, Deviant Sunrise, and then Operation Stuffed Animals. I want to ask, who comes up with these names, and why stuffed animals?
That's funny you asked that. So the lead investigator usually comes up with those operational names. When Deviant Sunrise and Nightfall happened, I came up with that because of the whole deviance portion of it,
Yeah.
because it is what it is. It's a type of operation that seeks people who are deviants. And then Operation Stuffed Animals kind of resonated with me because, we're taking these animals who wish to, that are grown men, 40 years old, or 30 years old, they're having sex with somebody who's still got a 1 in front of their their number of their age, or even less, So to me, stuffed animals means we're putting these animals in jail.
Until you said that, I didn't put the two together, but that makes sense. It's almost a sense of irony in a bit.
Right.
Stuffed animals, because that's what children, have.
Absolutely.
But the animal is what we're putting in jail.
Absolutely.
And it's such my hat's off to you all, and such a major thanks to you guys, the heroes behind this, that are able to step in that gap between good and evil.
Sure.
And prevent these suspects from going after children. And like you said, if you're out there, I know the Nassau County Sheriff's Office, we're coming out for you.
Absolutely. And and I want to say too, I really commend the effort not only of our participating agencies, but our takedown teams, phenomenal professionals. I can tell you that just seeing how they operated in the field was tremendous. When you have these types of incidents and you have no use of force, because you're so tactful and you are so professional. That's outstanding work. Our investigators that we have, our investigative team is above and beyond when it comes to these operations. They do a phenomenal job. It's a lot of work. And oftentimes it goes unrecognized because here I am sitting at this bench, but I don't need to be. We should have, about another 50 people behind us because it really takes a lot of effort from a lot of people to put these together.
Well, Josh, major thanks to you for all the work you do as the lead investigator on both of these operations just this year. And of course to everybody else behind the scenes, all the other detectives within the Nassau County Sheriff's Office, all the other sheriff's offices and agencies that
Yes.
help out. It's a major task, and one that I think this community can really appreciate, and
Yeah.
thank you for, and everyone else. Is there anything else you want to mention that maybe you didn't get to talk about?
Yeah, I really, I want to stress to the point that parents really need to monitor their kids. You have no idea what's happening when you're not looking, because the kids are going to be kids, So just be parents, be friends later. That's all my message is, and really monitor and protect your kids,
I think you always want to assume, oh, it wouldn't be my kid,
Yeah.
but
And then it ends up being
and then
your
it ends
kid.
up being your kid.
And then here I am knocking at your door to investigate it,
Mm-hmm.
So don't let your kids fall victim to, somebody who's 40 years old, 8 states away, because even in this operation, we've got people from Wyoming, Mississippi, all over the place. So, they're all over.
Yeah. Well, Josh, thank you so much for your time and for joining us here today. Thank you for all your work. And thank you all for tuning in for this episode of NCSO 360. Stay tuned for the next one.